Welcome to the 7th chapter of the book of 2nd Kings. If you hear any strange sounds in the background, we're going through a storm here on the Oregon coast. I live right on the ocean. Right behind me here, about, less than a football field away is the water of the Pacific Ocean. And we're having a gale coming through right now, so it's pouring and blowing around 30 or 40 miles an hour. Chapter 7, the Syrian Army. The last chapter we found out that the city was surrounded, and the man came to tell Elisha, and Elisha told him and showed him through God to open his eyes to see the force of God around the city, how they weren't really to fear. And then it begins, and Elisha said, then it stopped with the king sending his right-hand man to get Elisha to kill him, and then this is where we start off now, and Elisha said, akuson, here, acoustics comes from that, the logon kyriou, the word of the Lord. Hear it. Thus says the Lord. So the Lord speaks to Elisha a lot, and Elisha can see things that no one else can see, almost more than anybody I can think of in the Old Testament that has this type of a gift. Moses had a gift of talking to God, but not necessarily seeing the things in the same way as Elisha. So Elisha says what God says, at this same time or hour, tomorrow, ora, hour, transliteration, a metron, meter, of measure of fine flour, shall be sold for a shekel. Before the last chapter, it was a donkey's head was going to go for 500 pieces of silver, and a calf, dove's dung for a lot of money. But now it's just the opposite, a shekel, a measure, probably a bushel. Siklu is a transliteration into shekel. Siklu, shekel, you can add that to your English derivatives book. And theo, two, duo, it's in transliteration, metra, measures of barley for a shekel. So 2 bushels of barley. At the gate of Samaria. This is what is going to be sold. And what? And the tribune, the man that was sent by the king, responded, the man upon whom the king rested upon his hand, this is right-hand man, said to the man of God, and said, and if the Lord should make a cataractus, a torrent in the heaven, you can add that to your English derivatives book, a cataract, which is a place where a lot of rushing water goes. If the Lord should make a cataract or a torrent in the heaven, shall this thing be? God was able to do all this. Would this happen? Elisha said. Now this man doubted it. Really, it was a doubt to him. Behold, you shall see with your eyes, but you shall not eat from there. Okay? And 4 men, that changes now, lepers, were by the door of the city, I believe on the outside. And said one man to his neighbor, because they wouldn't want the lepers being inside the city, and said one man to his neighbor, well, why do we sit here until we die? If we should say, well, we should enter into the city, and the famine's in the city, then we shall die there. And if we sit here, then we shall die here. And now, come, we shall fall into the hand or the camp of Syria. If they should bring us forth alive, then we shall live. And if they should kill us, then we shall die. So, we're not getting anywhere sitting here in front of the gate. So let's just go into the camp. Maybe they'll give us some food. And they rose up in the darkness, so it was still nighttime, to enter into the camp of Syria, early morning probably, maybe. And they entered unto a part of the camp of Syria, and behold, There was not a man there. They're looking around, there's nobody here. Huge camp. And what happened, it says, and the Lord made audible in the camp of Syria a sound of chariots, and a sound of horses, and a sound of a great force. So God put it into the ears that they heard this. He did this other places also in the Bible. He causes, rather than Israel to fight, he causes a fear in the other armies and they flee. I think that could possibly be going to happen in the Gog and Magog war, if it's the same, if a Gog and Magog war is before the 1,000 years. And the Gog and Magog, it does come back, it says, and after the 1,000 years in the book of Revelation. But it talks about Israel defeating this great army of all these countries, and could very, very well be. I always thought, after I read about friendly fire in the Gulf War, where the American tanks and army had certain types of electronic gizmos that picked up a certain code, and when they knew that code, then whoever was with that piece of equipment would be safe. They wouldn't be attacked. But if it was without the code, then they would be vulnerable to being attacked. And so I said in I think it was the Second Gulf War, that more people died by friendly fire, by the code getting mixed up or not receiving it, than they did by the enemy. So I think this could possibly be going to happen with Israel when it's attacked by these people around that it mentions in the book of Ezekiel. What is that, the 38th and 39th chapter. So they heard the sound of a great sound, and each man, Syrian, said to his neighbor, "Behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the king of the Hittites, which were up north, and the king of Syria, which were down south, to come against us." And they rose up and ran away. They were really afraid. They heard this, and they were sure, and they left everything and just started running. And they left in the darkness at night. And they abandoned their tents. Skinas, a scene comes from that. The early plays were done in tents, and they call them scenes from this word. And they abandoned their horses and their donkeys, as was in the camp, and fled for their lives, and they're taken off. And these lepers came unto the part of the camp, and they're walking around. They come to it, and they entered into one tent. They opened the tent and looked, nobody there. And they went in and ate food and drank, drinking the wine, and lifted from there the silver and the gold. So they left a lot. They went to maybe a general's tent or somebody that was important, and they took the clothes. And they went forth and hid everything. They took it out, filled their hands, all four of them, on their backs. Off they go, finding a place to hide it all. And they returned and entered into another tent. So all four go back in. They're doing this during the night, and they took from there more of the same, and went forth and hid them. And then said one man to his neighbor, "Oh, we're not thus doing right. This is a day of good news, and we keep silent, and are waiting until light of the morning, and we shall find iniquity. Something bad's going to happen to us. Now then, come, we should go and announce to the house of the king." So they entered and yelled by the gate in the early morning of the city. It doesn't say early morning, but assuming it was. And they announced to them, saying, "Hey, we entered into the camp of Syria, and behold, there's not there a man, nor the voice or the sound of a man, but only a horse being tied and a donkey being tied. And their tents are as they are. They're all set up." And they called the doorkeepers, and they announced to the house of the king inside, going to the king. And the king rose up in the night, so it was still early morning, and said to his servants, Well, I shall report indeed to you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we hunger, and they went forth from out of the camp to hide in a field, saying, They shall come forth from out of the city, and we shall seize them alive, and shall enter into the city. They're tricking us. And answered one of his servants and said, Well, let them take indeed 5 of the horses, of the ones being left behind, which they left behind here. We have these horses here. Behold, they are for all the multitude of Israel faltering. That we're going to slay them and eat them. For we will send there and see. So they took 2 riders of horses. And the king of Israel sent them after Syria, saying, Go and see. And they went after them unto the Jordan. And behold, all the way was full of clothes and items, which the Syrians tossed in their being distraught, running and dropping everything. And the messengers returned and announced to the king. And the people came forth, and tore in pieces the camp of Syria. All the food and everything that they wanted was there. They were starving. And a measure of fine flour became worth a shekel. So they had all these goods and trying to sell it. Somebody had gathered a lot. It was so much that wasn't worth much anymore. And 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the saying of the Lord. And the king placed the tribune, that was the man who came to Elisha originally and said, Well, if the Lord brings a cataract or a torrent from heaven, is this going to happen? So the king placed the tribune, upon whom the king rested upon his hand, over the gate. So he goes to the gate, control it, all these people. And the people trampled him at the gate, and he died, as the man of God said, who said, with the messenger coming down to him. And it came to pass, as Elisha said to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel, and it will be at this hour tomorrow, at the gate of Samaria. And the tribune answered to the man of God and said, And if the Lord should make a torrent in the heaven, shall this thing be? And the man of God said, Behold, you will see with your eyes, but from there you will not eat. And it came to pass thus. And the people trampled him at the gate, and he died. Now, it goes back to normal. With Samaria, the king is ruling, and we'll find out in chapter 8 what happens. Some time goes by, and our old friend Gehazi appears, and we'll find out what that's all about in chapter 8, if you join us, which I hope you do. Until then, God bless.